Fuel rail pressure sensor quick fix. The fuel rail pressure sensor value is used by the ECM to control the fuel pump rotational speed and injection. It measures the fuel pressure at the injectors. Here are the facts about the fuel rail pressure sensor. 1. The only reason why the fuel rail pressure sensor was developed was to make the fuel pump last longer. 2. Before the fuel rail pressure sensor was developed, the fuel pump was always working at 100% load. 3. Using the fuel rail pressure sensor, the fuel pump module regulates the pump's rotational speed according to engine load. 4. The fuel pump module computer sends a pulse width modulation signal to the fuel pump to control it. 5. At idle, the need for excess fuel is reduced, so the fuel pump's speed is reduced with input from the fuel rail pressure sensor. 6. The fuel rail pressure sensor has 3 wires: the sensor ground, the 5-volt reference, and the signal Y. 7. The sensor is used on returnless fuel system. These are systems with no return line. 8. A vacuum hose is used in the fuel rail pressure sensor to take engine vacuum into consideration when measuring the fuel pressure. It takes less pressure to flow fuel at high vacuum, like idle speed, than at wide open throttle. This vacuum hose often leaks fuel with sensor damage. 9. To test the pressure sensor, disconnect the sensor, jump sensor signal to the 5-volt reference, then jump signal to sensor ground. You should see close to 5 volts and 0 volts respectively. That proves the sensor wiring. 10. It is possible to test the fuel rail pressure sensor response signal, but such a test is 99% of the time unnecessary. This is due to the newer smart vehicle computers, or ECMs, and the rationality check done on the fuel rail pressure sensor. So if you do get a code, trust it. Finally, if faced with a fuel rail pressure sensor code, first test the wiring as mentioned here. Then make sure the fuel pump can deliver a full charge by either actuating the fuel pump using a scanner or manually energizing the fuel pump at 100% load. Compare readings at the fuel pressure gauge. A fuel volume gauge may also be needed to do this test. That's it for the fuel rail pressure sensor quick fix.